What's up, everybody? Welcome
What's
back
good?
to another Packet Live, Wednesday, April 9th, 9 a.m. or 9:04. Sorry, we're a little late. Good to see you guys. How's it going?
Yeah, good. Good to see you too.
Go. Markets are crashing.
Yeah, Caleb. Markets are crashing. All big congratulations to Caleb on the arrival of his new family member.
Thank you.
Congrats. Another Packeteer brought on, whether they like it or not.
CJD Jr. is in the house.
CJD Jr. Let's go. You got to give him a computer in hand, just right when he's right out of the womb.
His first language is going to be coding.
First language is Rust.
All right, I'm going to go and do a little spread in the word. Josh, do you want to kind of kick things off for us?
It's actually been cool. I was going to share some stuff because though the markets are crashing, though everyone's running around like their hair is on fire, though Packet is at the lowest it's ever been in the history of Packet, we're building. So we're out here building shit and not getting caught up in the mix of it all. So I was gonna actually share. We're not done with it, so I don't really love sharing unfinished things, but figure why not? You know, we're out here. So I might just give you guys a little preview of what's being built over here.
Yeah, a lot of stuff's being built, and there's also a lot of business development that's been going on as well on the Packet TV front. But it's a weird moment because the core community that was really focused on the cryptocurrency is, everyone's pretty much shuffled off. But the stuff that's being built here is, undeterred and really, really cool stuff. So fire away, Josh.
Yeah, well, this is with a grain of salt. It's not done, like I said. So basically, and this doesn't even work. So, you'll be able to search. This is all kind of doesn't work yet. But it'll start showing you, the different domains. It'll query the domain. What's it called? The domain list to see which ones are available. And then this is kind of the Web3 version. If you guys ever saw the dump stake domain thing that Caleb had built, this is kind of the front end of it. It connects to your wallet already. Here, I think you can. If I refresh this, it'll whatever it's. Anyway, so it'll. I've already authorized my wallet, but once this connects, this thing finds your wallet, and I'm scared to go do anything more than this because I don't know how far along the process is, but this is kind of just to make sure sizing and all that stuff works. But it looks pretty sexy, and it's coming along, and so it's just been nice to put it all together and watch it come to fruition.
Yeah, for sure. And we have built this specifically just to make it very easy for people to onboard domains, and that's that's really the key here, is just trying to make it so people don't have to go through the dashboard to get a domain and do the multi-step.
That's epic.
It really looks good. And, being that the, claiming of domains and really encouraging people to get these packet domains is such a key part of the network, making kind of abstracting away the Web3 side and the need to have cryptocurrency on Base and Ethereum, and just trying to make that process simple and ultimately make it so someone could just use a credit card to grab a web domain is going to be key for the growth of this thing. So that's especially as it relates to the Packet Hub and getting people to start onboarding their, onboarding their websites and their content into the Packet Hub. We just got to make it as easy as possible for people to use this technology, and like I said, kind of abstracting away the cryptocurrency side, because in this market, I mean, this is where crypto struggles to substantiate its relevance when the market gets completely nuked out like this. And obviously we've been watching the market get nuked out for 4 months now, so this lack of stability, unless you're just in a 4 or 5 month short position, it's just not a lot of investor confidence out there. But the truth is on the blockchain side, this is where the strength and innovation of the technology really begins to thrive, and there's so much value in that technology base. But people get caught up in the speculative nature of their investments, which is fully understandable. But this is also where those moments where projects that have real technology, real utility, can begin to thrive, and we try and prove that consistency on the Packet side, because this project was launched in the 2019 bear market. It's been through now multiple different markets. It's seen the market cap in the hundreds of millions and now under $1 million. So we're just and we're just here continuing to build because we have a specific trajectory, and what we're doing and why we're doing it.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I think just being able to just, and I think that's what's always made us just kind of stay strong and stay true, is just we've always been focused on the technology of it all. And, the coin price reflects when other people are using the technology and getting involved. But we continue to stay on track and stay on the mission. And, we're lucky enough that we're all, smart enough to be dangerous and able to kind of keep building even regardless of market sentiment and market conditions. But the truth is, Packet launched in an absolute terrible time, in a bear market right as COVID hit. Like, that was how we started this thing. So we're no strangers to headwinds.
Yeah, no doubt. And they always say that when it's red, the strongest ones prevail. So we ain't stopping. Ain't no stopping.
Yeah.
Josh, what else do you have for us?
The other thing, like I said, I hate showing shit that's not finished, but we're here, let me find it.
Well, it's been kind of a cool, kind of behind the scenes process, continuing to develop all this tech, and the network itself. I mean, on the just talking about the underlying Packet network, there's still, everyday use cases. For example, I don't know if people are using the VPN. I mean, we see people using the VPN, but I don't know if people in the Packet community are using the VPN every day. But the VPN is pretty amazing. I guess you can't really use it unless you have a mini. The mini, or I guess the old school Android app. But the mini still provides a lot of benefit. I know that I use it almost every single day as a hardware VPN in my house. For example, even if you're watching TV and you have a blackout on a sports game, or a blackout on a streaming platform, you can just use the Packet VPN. So that's still an everyday thing that's been, it's just been kind of rewarding knowing that we built that and that's available. So, still encourage people to get on and after that. And, yeah, and we haven't really seen people building websites, but obviously still encouraging people to go get their websites up. It's always hard to get people to change their patterns there, but I've been dropping websites off of GoDaddy and bringing them over into the Packet network, and it's definitely been nice having web URLs that you don't have to pay a monthly or annual subscription for. What do you got, Josh?
Yeah, for sure. And if there's anyone that out here who's watching,
so this is basically the Creator Hub, or this is the back end of the Packet Hub, and so you can kind of go in, be able to change the different categories, and then you can go into each category and you can just kind of create each card, and then
you can't do that. That's specifically what you built for.
What we can do, what we as admins get to do. So this just kind of shows the back end of what it looks like, and all the kind of customization you can do, or we can do. So when people are able to submit, that we don't have to get a developer involved and go and do all that process, like the uploading process of putting content onto the hub is much more fluid and frictionless for
this has been a big kind of hurdle, I guess you would say, with the hub, because as people want to onboard, the first version of it was fully coded out and it was pretty fixed, and so every time somebody came to us wanting to add a media title or a project, or we wanted to do a books category, so like adding just a category, these were just incredibly challenging hurdles that we had to basically have a developer jump in and do it. So we end up spending the last 2 months having a developer build a whole dashboard backend that allows us to, as Josh said, more fluidly add content into the hub. And I think that is obviously going to bring forth a lot more ease for us to onboard titles and get things pushed up onto the network. The other piece of this, obviously, that coincides with the registration of packet domains is key, but at least now we can simplify and streamline, getting more content up into the Creator Hub and onto the Packet Hub. So we should start to see some growth there. I think that one of the other pieces, and the biggest challenge, obviously, is always going to come down to messaging, marketing, awareness, publicity, and the consistency behind that. But at least now we have the functionality to grow this network and get more people onboarding there. And that's really where we believe the next, version of the community is going to grow from, and where we can start onboarding creators, across the media space, people who are, and media doesn't just have to necessarily be digital media, but we're talking about books, podcasts, radio, music, all these different places that people are being creative, and people want to share their content with the world, and getting this to start being a place that people domicile and anchor their content and messaging from. And then the next piece, this is kind of the next frontier, is building out a template so that it's very easy for people to have their own websites launch on the Packet network. That's really the next piece, is making it as simple as possible for someone to, just have a location, a website for them to, sell from, do streaming from, even just market themselves from, and we're looking for a partner right now that will help us do that, help us do those web templates. That's your kind of thought, right, Josh, on web templates?
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of shifting my thoughts on that just based on how good AI has gotten, and just how good, like how easy things have become. So I don't really know exactly if another partner is going to come and take over that portion. I'd love that because they would obviously help with the hosting side of things. But at the end of the day, it's it's a big ask of a platform to come and do that. I mean, it's not a huge ask, but it's definitely some development involved. So I'm still hopeful that we'll find a partner that's like, yeah, we want to take that business and run with it. But it seems kind of as we further develop the packet TV and that whole ecosystem, that might just be something we have to kind of build ourselves. It's not too complex, but being able to let people put up their own, their own tile, and then when you click on that tile, that takes you to a website environment where you're able to monetize your content within this ecosystem, giving people the rails and the tools to just be able to go and build that out yourself and not need to hire a whole dev team to go put that together. And then also having that use our domain system, which gives you that free domain for life. Now, if you want to go point that to your own website where you build your own site, that's fine too. But I think in the development of what we're doing, being able to bring in self-hosting, I don't know, there's a few things we still need to work out from an architecture standpoint that makes it so that this remains free and available to all and doesn't have to put a big cost in it just to sustain. So there's definitely some mechanics around that, but the goal of this thing is really to make it so that you can have your own little ecosystem where you can put your libraries, you can put your individual piece of content, where you as a creator, this becomes like your portfolio for your content and a place where you can monetize it easily. And we'll continue to develop that out and figure out solutions that can make that really easy and frictionless, regardless of your technological know-how.
Yeah. I actually, just when you were saying that, it was starting to kind of click for me. But it's interesting because what we've been building is a way to circumvent all the businesses that try and charge the customer along the way to do these things. There's just major businesses. I mean, GoDaddy's a massive, massive, massive business, billion-dollar business that's doing the registrar side. You got, companies like Wix and Squarespace, that are doing the website side. You have companies like, iTunes that are doing the content distribution side, and Amazon. And it's like, we're building a platform here where creators can just come and do all those things and have no intermediary in the middle of that, and don't have to pay to have access to that. So it's not going to be built overnight, but that's really the mindset for us, is to break down these walls that are set in place to essentially take the content, monetize it, and for the distributor to keep the money, and then for the service provider to force you to pay them for the ability to do these things. And really what the vision behind the Packet Network is to make it possible for people to just do all that stuff on their own, and to have the money come directly to the content creator without having to pay the platform and the web host and the registrar and the payment processor. It's just to be able to do all these things on your own, to pure play it. And imagine if these ways that people are monetizing, and again, it's not just about movies, it's books and publishing, it's across all these different categories. Imagine if it was just, you come up with an idea, you come to an environment and start making money from it without having to pay a big portion of your revenue to all these different media intermediaries, and you have to pay for just the privilege to have a web identity, and which is not a lot of money, but multiply it times millions or billions of people, it's a lot of money for these companies. So putting all that money back into the creator's pocket is really the vision at this point with what we can do with the network. I actually think there's a lot of other incredible things that are possible with the Packet Network, but we wanted to just kind of hang our hat on this category right now. We happen to know a lot about it. And so, yeah, we're just building, these are the first iterations of this ecosystem and what's possible. So the goal is to now create that spark so that people can come in here and start actually doing it themselves. Um, as I've noticed kind of human behavior, people are always hesitant to try new things and see it every single day. People would rather pay for something just because it's familiar or because they're worried that it's going to force them to have to learn something or spend some extra time trying to do something. In this case, adoption is, it just takes time. And so we're just going to continue building these tools. We know how to use them on our own, and our goal is to continue to get people to adopt them. And I think Packet TV, the good thing that gets me excited about Packet TV, obviously, it's a very large endeavor. It will require a lot of capital to actually make it possible. And we're just now out in the marketplace starting to talk to some just major players, from media companies to personalities, celebrities, distributors, about getting involved with the project. And I mean, just it's been wild. Like every single person we've been talking to has been saying yes. So Josh and I spent the entire day yesterday doing dozens of contracts, onboarding advisors and all these different people that are coming into it. We haven't talked to anybody about these things publicly yet, but there's a lot of momentum that's occurring in that part of the business. And as soon as that really begins to catch on, and that doesn't have anything to do with crypto, the way that that's being viewed, but ultimately it will relate back. Everyone understands that the Packet Network is the underpinning of what we're doing. And as those funds do come into play, our intent is for that to coincide with marketing the Packet Hub, Creator Hub, and ultimately Packet Network. So the use cases with regards to specifically Packet domains, and I think we'll have a direct relation to growth on the currency side as well, especially just on the utility of the currency alone. Even if people aren't speculating on it, but just getting people clear that they need to hold it. And we can get thousands, hundreds of thousands of people to get involved. It's going to have an impact. So we continue to power through. Not a lot of projects can say that. You get knocked off your pedestal, and it's definitely hard to get back up. And we've just been a resilient bunch, just continuing to grind, irregardless of the price, and build what we always knew this technology was to be used for.
Yeah, I think also we've never had. Sorry, I'm just like bringing people in. Join now. Anyways, yeah, we've never really had this many people that just kind of rally behind what the vision is. Like I remember when we first started Packet, there's definitely people excited about what we were doing, but there was still, it's still a little bit of a brain buster on how it's going to work and who's going to use it and what's the use case and all that stuff. And so, being able to start having these conversations with extremely high level people has been really rewarding in getting so much positive feedback around it, and really just kind of rest assures that we're on the right track with how we're using this, because the network's it's so broad and it's so kind of nebulous, I guess, of like what a network does. So when you can have something that people can physically touch and use and engage with, becomes a lot easier to grasp. And also, just in this economic time and uncertainty of like what's happening in the world, I think media and entertainment is something that, no matter what's going on in the world, is it's going to be something that people are using and engaging with, and as things get tougher in the economy, people are looking for cheaper and easier ways to do things. So that's why I feel we're really on the right track with this direction and this vertical that we've been focusing our energy on.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, for sure.
Those have been the those have been the reason that we've been grinding on it for so long. But I think we also need to get back into building and it's been hard, obviously, in the crypto community because everyone is just so beat down. It's been wild, but it's still important to continue to build within the crypto community space. I think probably the biggest issue with the crypto community space is because prices have just been perpetually going down now since really December. It's just hard to get people to jump into anything. That's why the only thing is happening is like these little flash in the pan meme projects where the price goes up and everyone jumps in and then jumps out because you just cannot hold anything. I mean, you can't even hold ETH right now. ETH has just been absolutely getting beaten down. I mean, I was just looking, I think ETH is right now lower than when we launched on base. I don't think we saw it down below 1,500. But I mean, we're back at like the highs from 2018 right now, So it's in bad shape. And Bitcoin has been holding up. Bitcoin's been holding up quite well, but Bitcoin's almost back down to the high of the last bull market. So, all the gains, are gone from, post ETF. And yeah, it's just a tough time to be in crypto right now. I think everyone's pretty disgruntled with regards to putting their faith in this U.S. administration, think that they were going to, be good for the economy. Clearly not, at least in the short term. And I think I haven't found one crypto person that doesn't feel completely betrayed. But you buy snake oil from a snake oil salesman. I don't know what you could expect you were going to get. I mean, that was, everyone was forewarned about it, and now everyone is, reaping the unfortunate consequence of that. But regardless, it definitely marks a regulatory change for crypto, and I think that's in the long term the positive piece that we can all take from this. Obviously, the negative piece being, the global markets are completely cratered. I think I just saw that China just had the biggest drop in their stock market since 2008, and yesterday. And we certainly know that the U.S. markets are roiled. Crypto's been absolutely obliterated. But, from a regulatory standpoint, when I look back on the fear that we had launching PKT back in prior to it even launching, so 2018, when we were discussing what this was going to be and ultimately went with what we went with as a proof of work, there was a lot of fear around, launching anything. And now that fear is gone. And that is a result of this regulatory shift that's happened just in the last 2 months, 3 months. So that is positive for crypto. And ultimately from a long-term standpoint will lend itself to growth once we get through whatever this period looks like. And depending on how severe it is. But once we do get through to the other side, it's definitely going to be good for there to be regulatory certainty. I think that will invite new types of investments into this ecosystem. And I've also been seeing some really interesting stuff around banking regulation and and incorporating stable coins into what traditional banks are able to do, paying interest through stable coins, things like this, which is an incredibly powerful prospect. And we know that the reduced friction that cryptocurrency does bring forth is incredibly valuable, especially for cross-border payments, especially just for any type of transaction that's not on the Ethereum blockchain, which I'm still baffled on. Maybe we all got completely gaslit thinking that the Ethereum upgrade was going to reduce fees. Ethereum is got to be as close to a failed project as possible with regards to its ability to transact. And thank God for layer twos, but I'm just blown away that even when there's any type of market volatility, you just literally can't even send a transaction over the Ethereum network without paying some exorbitant fee. I mean, we're talking about sending $5 or $10 worth of ETH and having to pay a $50 to $150 gas fee. It's just that's not a viable, project. So it doesn't surprise me to watch the currency cratering right now because it looks like a complete failure in terms of its ability to transact at in mass. But from a layer 2 standpoint, there's unbelievable technological capability there. And besides the fact that you have to onboard through Ethereum, that's still a lot of viability in these layer 2s. I think the biggest issue, and Caleb, I know you've been giving some thought about this, is how to get people into these layer 2 currencies, with some sort of ease. You want to talk? I was going to think. Do you want to talk about the project that you just worked on, Caleb, with the that you had just done, or that was it a grant project that you had just done?
It's a hackathon, right?
The hackathon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it wasn't really the way I see the layer 2s working, and this is how if I need to buy base ETH, I just buy ETH on an exchange that supports base,
and then withdraw. Yeah.
Yep. I mean, that seems to be the way.
It is.
It's just Ethereum's fine as long as you don't touch Ethereum. Or if you use Ethereum, you need to be prepared to wait until there's a slow moment and then do your transaction then.
Yeah.
And
not in this market.
Oh, it's all fast moments now. I'm just
just waiting sitting in Ethereum when it's literally just going down perpetually.
I see. Yeah.
Like you're sitting in a currency that's devaluing itself because there's just no stability.
Yeah. Well, so your fees get smaller.
Well, that's the crazy thing. No, your fees get bigger as the longer you wait. That's what I just don't understand.
Okay, yeah, sure. So you do the transaction, you pay the $50 in fees, but by the end of the year, you can pretend you only paid $30 in fees.
Right, because now you're over on the L2, and it's a lot cheaper.
Oh, no, because you just exited your Ethereum position, and then Ethereum took a dump, and so you could just pretend that the fee you paid was even smaller.
Sure. Yeah. But yeah, talk through the hackathon and what you guys were building.
The project that I did, and it's just a library for, and it's actually not even that interesting for. It's not that interesting for getting on and off of L2. It's for being able to. It's like the gas station network. That's a similar thing. It's like being able to have your fee be paid in the token that you're using. So like if packet on base fees are pretty small, but you need to have some base ETH in order to do any transaction. It's just a real headache. And if you could do a packet transaction and have it paid by selling a little bit of packet every time you transact, then that would be ideal, because then you would only have to have packet. And that was the design that we came up with. And it's sitting on GitHub. It's called the Pollinate framework, and you can go to pollinate.cgdns.fr if you want to look at it. Kind of a research prototype is what I would call it, but it definitely has potential and something that we could think about using in the future in Packet, pending a upgrade of the coin, because we need to put a few hooks in it to allow that to happen. But that would be something that would be potentially interesting. And then there's another component of it which does periodic operations, like paying out the people who staked their packet, being able to pay them out periodically, automatically, without having to have a paymaker sitting there making those payments.
Well, first off, I mean, that's such a it's such a simple but necessary piece of technology, just because you think about the number of times where you have a currency. Let's say someone sends you some PKT, you receive it because it doesn't cost you anything to receive it, right? And then you go to send it or spend it or sell it, and it's like, oh, you don't have any Ethereum to transact. I mean, this has been consistent. We've had this problem all over the dashboard where people go take their perfect example, go claim your airdrop, and then you want to go stake, but now you don't have any base ETH. I mean, that's the perfect use case, right? And then all of a sudden we're having people getting these error messages and they're like, what's going on? This shit's broken, right? And this technology that you're talking about here just makes it so that it's a seamless transaction. It's just going to sell off some of the native currency that you're transacting in just to and it runs that around in a circle to pay the gas fee, basically.
Yeah, and I mean, it's kind of
simple, but brilliant.
We moved to base to get rid of a lot of the user experience issues that we had, running our own blockchain. But we have to acknowledge that the Ethereum world has a user experience issue too, which is that, like, okay, I just got some like moon tokens. What do I do with them? You think about you're a normie. You've never done this before. Okay, I've got a wallet. All right, I'm learning the computery stuff. I've got a wallet. It's in my web browser, I guess. It has a password and stuff. And then it's like, okay, I've got some moon payment crap. What do I do with it? Is there anything I can do with it? And then it's like, well, I'll send it to somebody. You go to send it to somebody. It's like, oh, but moon payment isn't going to solve your problem. You also need to have Mars coin. And it's like, the fuck is this shit? Yeah. And that's a major user experience problem that all of these L1, L2 kind of ERC20 based ecosystems have, and we have it too.
Yeah, look, I mean, none of this stuff's perfect. It's all got kind of, you trade one problem for another problem. I mean, even Bitcoin, it has its own problems as well. So I mean, you can't.
Bitcoin, well, the L2s, the L1s don't have this problem, and I think that's part of the,
Well, it's got Bitcoin, a 10-minute block problem if you're trying to go do a transaction. And
what problem?
10-minute block. I think the biggest issue for Bitcoin is that the wallet makers have decided amongst themselves that they should issue you a new address every time you make change. So you don't really have an address in Bitcoin. You have this continuous faucet, a waterfall of new addresses coming out of the ether. And that's supposed to make it private, but it doesn't, because any coin analytics can just connect all those addresses together. And yet you don't have a place like on the Explorer where you can just check your balance the way you do in Ethereum land. So in Ethereum, you need another coin in order to spend your coin. And then in Bitcoin, you don't, but you don't really have one address that you can just go online and check your balance, because I mean, it'd be like having a bank account. Every time you make a transaction, it creates another bank account. This is just weird. So I would say that's the biggest problem with Bitcoin.
Yeah. And it was interesting because a lot of that was solved on the PKT side, but
this hacked it out.
Which is cool, there was definitely some, certainly some innovations there. And we've seen that.
The problem with PKT is that we used technology that was at a dead end, peer-to-peer wallet, lightning stuff that just that whole branch of the ecosystem never really amounted to anything. In 2019, it looked like it was going places, but it just didn't. It was a failure to launch, and the L2s and Ethereum world just took over. So we just went and jumped on the train.
Because Ethereum boosted so high that like people now had a bunch of money to go innovate over there, and so you saw kind of this like exponential growth in Ethereum over the last 5 years that you didn't necessarily see. You saw it with Bitcoin, but not in the same way that Ethereum had an explosive growth. Now, fast forward to this last cycle, Bitcoin really got to grow some wings and do some flying. But it'll be interesting with like the growth that Bitcoin just experienced hitting 100 grand. If there's innovation there, or if everyone's just like, oh, it's a store of value, and so we're just going to go put that in our coffers and not develop there.
I don't think there is any innovation happening on Bitcoin. I mean, the Lightning Network is wake me up when it does something. The most of the Bitcoin developers are now developing Nostr, which is micropayments over Lightning, which is fine. And it's cool. Lightning does work for micropayments because you don't tap out the channels, but nobody's really thinking about like layer 2s or soft forking anything equivalent to Solidity. I mean, I understand why they don't want to do that, because you end up with Ethereum again, which you end up with these ridiculous gas fees, which, to their credit, Bitcoin keeps it simple and they don't have the ridiculous fees. So that's nice, but mostly don't have the ridiculous fees. That's nice, but not having that, getting around the complexity, not having the complexity means that they don't have the ability to do stuff like L2s. So that's and I think the Bitcoin guys just don't want to innovate. Like they say it works. The point is not to be innovative. The point is to be a known quantity that people can rely on, that's not going to change overnight. A Bitcoin in 2009 is the same as a Bitcoin now, and that's kind of predictable, and good on them for that. And that's worked out real well for them, especially legacy finance. They understand that a Bitcoin from 2009 is the same as Bitcoin now. Legacy finance guys love it. I think they feel like they can't get their hands around Ethereum because it's an amorphous thing. Every time the developers have a dream, they invent something different. I'm talking shit about all these projects, and not invited to any parties. But and that makes Ethereum a lot more hard to get comfortable with if you're 70 years old and you wear a tie to work. So I mean, it's gonna be interesting to see how it goes. It's two different theories of how things ought to work, and we need both. We need stability, and we also need innovation. So
right. No, it's super interesting. I mean, just the whole space, the evolution of this entire ecosystem. I know it'll be interesting what happens with the deregulation of crypto and all the all the fencing that has been ripped down, and they like took out the whole Department of Crypto Regulation. It's just like no longer exists.
Yeah,
so
I just saw that this morning. They just disbanded the whole entire crypto regulation department.
So I don't know.
The consumer financial protection thing, that Warren's thing?
No, it was like an actual like an actual department.
SEC.
Okay.
Was it at the SEC? Was that where it was?
I think it was. I don't know. I just saw.
Well, I mean,
but I think what's a little silly about this administration, and look, I'm all for deregulation of crypto. Like, stop trying to throw people in jail for trying to innovate. But let's not be foolish. There are tons of people trying to scam people with crypto. Like, that's a real thing. That's not just like everyone that's trying to build here is trying to do the right thing. Like, you're dealing with, finance and, financial instruments, and you're dealing with billions of dollars, at least hundreds of millions of dollars per project, so there's a lot of money there. And for sure, not every single one of these projects are trying to do the right thing. And there's definitely a ton of fraud, and there's tons of rug pulls, and just people just,
Yeah, but they never caught a single scam artist. That's the counter argument, right?
True.
All
That's
the
not
years
true.
and all the scams and all the rug pulls and things that collapsed and blew up, they would show up after everybody lost their money and say, "Oh, this is why we need more funding for more government regulation."
They caught
And
that
then
one woman that
after somebody, they would only go after people who are on the shit list of politicians. So it's just like,
and
yeah,
there's so many
it's a great theory, but it never amounted to
And
anything.
there's-
So you might as well cut it.
And there's a lot of scams with the US dollar. I mean, I guarantee everyone on this call has been scammed off of some way or another.
right, but there's a regulatory body for that, and there's a and
none of those people get caught.
It's to say that
And it doesn't work.
well,
Yeah,
of course,
nobody
it's
gets
after
caught
the
for that
fact.
shit.
Of course, it's after the fact. You're not going to be able to preemptively know that somebody's going to scam you. Like, I mean,
But
maybe
just
you
because
can't.
there's regulation, but just because there's regulation doesn't mean that shit's gonna prevent scams.
I didn't say there
Well-
shouldn't be regulation. I said that there should still be a regulatory body that is paying attention to these, that are creating laws that are protecting consumers. It's like the FTX thing. Sure, anybody could go and do that, but there is certain things in checks and balances that after that happened, Sam Bankman-Fried is in jail, and he should be in jail for what he did and how the way he constructed that and the intermingling of money and all this stuff he did. Like, that stuff's illegal because it should be illegal. And if you take those regulations away, and sure, there's, in his defense, he could never have predicted that the rug would have been pulled out on crypto, and he didn't have checks and balances to protect that. But like, when you were sending money to FTX, you weren't sending money to FTX. You're sending money to this other company that was then, circling money around in a circle, and they were like separate but the same and intermingling cash. I mean, it was illegal because it should be illegal, and there should be a regulatory body that goes and regulates people like that. If you go remove all that,
let's differentiate between two things. So
Sure.
one is fraud and theft, and I don't think anybody's talking about getting rid of the fraud and theft laws. So fraud and theft and these type of things, these come in after the fact. So if you steal millions of dollars from a bunch of depositors and run off with it because you created a fake bank and paid off a bunch of politicians like SBF did, then after the fact you get caught. And hopefully the process works, but that process, that's not regulatory. That is the Justice Department coming after you for harming people after the fact. The idea of regulation, where regulation makes sense, is like, hey, can I build a nuclear power plant in my backyard? The regulatory say no, because we don't want to wait until the thing melts down and there's a giant exclusion zone, and then tell you owe $10 trillion for all the land that you've destroyed, and then have you say, well, there's nothing I can do about it, I'm broke. So we're going to regulate and say you just cannot do that. So regulation is, by definition, is preemptive. You're trying to prevent somebody from doing something that's likely to be a bad idea. So that's why, like, if I was to go outside and to build a building and say, well, I'm opening a bank, come deposit your money, I'll be shut down before anybody deposits money, because regulation says that a lot of times when people say they're opening a bank, come deposit your money, that's a bad idea. A lot of times they run with the money, so we're not going to allow them to do it, even if they're not going to run away with the money. So I don't think anybody's everybody's talking about getting rid of the actual common law of fraud, theft, and these types of things. The only real question about regulation is, should we prevent people from doing something that's likely to be bad before they do it? And I would say that, based on the track record of crypto regulation from, say, 2014 until now, they didn't catch any of the bad guys. I mean, they didn't really stop any of the bad guys in advance. You didn't see any all these dirty operations that everybody in the community was looking at going, oh man, you're going to lose your money. Don't touch that thing. And and people in the community saying, how is that company still existing? And then then the company goes belly up, and everybody's like, a bunch of people lose their money, and all the old developers are like, well, what did you think was going to happen? And then the government comes in and says, this is why we need more regulation. Well, no, it's not why you need more regulation. It's why the people who were supposed to be minding the store should be fired, because they weren't regulating. They didn't prevent the bad thing from happening. Be like if you had a nuclear regulatory authority, and then somebody just like builds a nuclear power plant in their shed, and then the thing melts down, and then they're like, well, we need more nuclear regulation. It's like, no, we need to fire the people who weren't regulating.
Well,
yeah, I
like,
think the regime changes is about regulation by prosecution or regulation by enforcement. And I think the problem with by the way, the Trump administration was even worse, but the Biden administration did nothing to advance this either, which is like everyone just wanted some regulation. They literally wanted they wanted to know what the rules of the road were. It's like, hey, if you don't want me to go 90 miles an hour, tell me to go 65 and put a sign up. It's just like, and not only that, they sued. You had Coinbase sue the federal government asking for regulation, just saying, hey, are we going 65 or 95 or 15? Like, what's the speed here? And they would not provide that clarity. And so that's really been, I think the missing part. And that's why banks haven't been able to get involved with it, because they're like, hey, we're not going to like touch this and then get burned. Like, we need to know what it needs to be. But to your point, Caleb, you're absolutely right. Like everything else, if anything, the strategy that had been going on, which is giving zero clarity and then saying that we're going to prosecute bad actors, it didn't lead to prosecuting bad actors. In fact, what it led to is prosecuting good actors, because the good actors were trying to do things on a larger level and trying to touch and benefit as many people as possible. Now, it doesn't mean that they were doing good things, because like a lot of the exchanges that got sued, you could argue are bad actors. Like the 200x leverage BS and the market manipulation to basically wipe out your customers every single day. Like that shit should be illegal. It's illegal in every other market. And crypto just being the Wild West, there being no regulation that says that you can't just liquidate your customers and take all their money. They're going to do it, right? But that wasn't even what the government was attacking these companies for. And that is, from my standpoint, the criminal activity. If you go look back on like probably somewhere, it's got to be over $1 trillion at this point of money that has been essentially and effectively stolen from customers, from exchange customers, by this collusion between market makers and exchanges, and the market making of exchanges. That are literally
there's a lot of dirty stuff going on.
That shit is, you could take every single rug pull, right, and add them up all together and create a supervillain, and then you could take every single exchange and what they've done over the last 90 days, and it's 100x over that, and it's just messed up. And I mean, literally.
But that's the whole point that I'm making, is they should be a regulatory body that's looking at these exchanges and being able to prevent.
But the problem is these exchanges are not domiciled in the US. So here's the problem with it, right? The problem is that you need some congruence on a global basis. And the US, look, this is where we need help. This is literally where we need help. And I actually agree with you, John. I think we're just barking up the wrong tree, all in all. If we were to just focus on one problem, and the problem was exchanges, and trying to create some congruency across all these exchanges around the world, and just let everyone rug pull and do Trump coins all over the place and F each other over, just the exchange problem would solve, in my opinion, like 90% of the problems with crypto. Because the exchanges is where is the most predatory stuff, and really where the customers, global customers, US customers at the very least, are getting really, really hurt. And I can just point to literally the last 60 to 90 days And Trump's tariff announcement and what the exchanges and market makers did to essentially rug pull the entire market, that shit's criminal. I mean, there's no question. That was a complete fabricated, market manipulated situation to trigger leverage, liquidations. And you can go and look at the leverage liquidation website, and you can just see how much money gets liquidated every single day. And where does that money go? It goes to the exchanges, So they're incentivized to liquidate their customers. And it's basically theft,
Yeah,
because
well,
it's
I
not
think
based
that's
on
why.
anything.
I mean, we have a World Bank regulation. There is joint regulation on banking where the world has kind of come together and say, this is right, this is wrong, this is kind of how things have to work. You're shaking your head, but like that is what the banks are doing. It's why people are using banks.
Yeah. Just go to China, go to Russia. There isn't any regulation. The regulation is if you can do whatever you want as long as you have the right connections. And that's the same thing as the exchanges. The reason why nobody ever goes after these exchanges is because all of these guys have phone numbers and they can call a guy and they can make the problem go away.
And they have war chests because they're liquidating.
Yeah.
And they have war chests. And that's the truth, is like, you sit there. I mean, look at what these guys just did. I mean, it's funny. I was just thinking about, if you talk to a lot of regulators, they would say, well, what happens if you get hacked? Are you going to be able to cover the hack? They're like, oh, we're good on hacks. We liquidate our customers every single day. So if we get hacked, we have a huge war chest of all their cash to just give it back to them in that circumstance, being that is such a rare circumstance. And that's how, when Buyback got, robbed for, what was it? Hundreds and hundreds of millions. Was it $1 billion? Something crazy amount of money. It was $1 billion, wasn't it? It was like a 1 point something billion. When they got robbed, they just said, no problem. We got that cash sitting right over here. We've been stealing it from our customers every single day for the last couple of years.
Yeah, but this is kind of the same thing of like where people used to hide money in Panama, and they used to go and hide money in these different, sovereign bank places, and the World Bank and these world authorities have gotten involved, and being able to have
got involved, and they said, if you don't clean up your act, Panama, Switzerland, etc., we're going to put you on the sanction list and cut you off from SWIFT. So that's how the banks were forced to do that, was because the U.S. can cut you off with sanctions.
Yeah, and I think I think where Josh is trying to say, and I think we can all agree, is that it would be good to have some congruency around what's right and what's wrong, around crypto. It's at one point we got to grow up, and and hopefully it happens, because I think it would ultimately be good for consumer confidence. I think this is where, if we're just ending on at this point, I think this is where we get a little bit detached from reality with crypto, is because it's been the wild, wild west, because you can kind of do whatever the heck you want to do. And the threat of doing these things is relatively low. And the reward is extremely high. And because people are kind of just, it's still so new, people are like, you can always get like the next person to take $5,000 out of their savings account and expose it to crypto and then lose it all. And there's so many people doing that, generally speaking, that it's just going to continue to happen, and people are going to continue to get hurt. But here's the thing. Every time someone gets hurt, every time there's a mass, $1 billion worth of liquidations or hundreds of millions of dollars worth of liquidations, the reality is that those retail buyers and their friends, just say, oh, I put $5,000 into that and lost it. That's not for me. And so it really stymies the ability for this marketplace to expand. But the reward is we keep getting all these hundreds of millions of dollars into the coffer. So it's almost like we'll just keep attacking the customer, attacking the retail idiot who makes these bad decisions, because who touches the fire and gets burned. And it's good for business on the exchange side. And so the question we have to ask ourselves, is it better to continue to harm the newbie, fresh retail customer who takes a little money out of their savings, exposes to crypto, so the exchanges continue to get rich, and some, you know, crypto coin can flash in the pan, go up and then come down? Or do we want to have some longevity to this ecosystem, to this marketplace, where people, and I'm not even talking about like stability, I'm just talking about like just harming people, which is what liquidations do, which is what, you know, watching, you know, the manipulations do. Even if you're not getting liquidated, you put your money into a project, goes down 80%. It's like, this is the type of shit that happens every single day. And so do we want to have some stability in this market? And yeah, maybe everyone's not making, you know, $1 billion a week like they are right now, but we can actually get hundreds of millions of more people to be involved with this market or not. And that's going to be that's going to be like the decision that, you know, maybe we just keep deferring that decision. But I think when we do get to the other side of that, that'll be an inflection point where crypto becomes like a real viable marketplace versus just this wild, wild west that we're living in today.
Well, you know, the thing that you have to consider is that gambling's an old problem. People want to gamble, and somebody's always going to set up a shop where people can gamble. I mean, you can really say, hey, if you don't want to get liquidated, don't use leverage, and that's a reasonably fair thing to say. You know, I mean, we can get rid of a lot of the problems by just saying, well, centralized exchanges can't do leverage. You know, you just, right, like, and so then you're only going to have you're not going to have any CEXs doing leverage because or you're just going to have these kind of shady ones that you need to already get some USDT and wire to some guy and yada yada yada. So then get the leverage out of all the reputable exchanges, and then what? Well, I mean, aren't people going to go take their coins and send them to some guy who says he's doing betting on racehorses or some other ridiculously stupid idea? And it's probably true that they will. And so, you know, are we actually solving anything? You know, I mean, Vegas is a pretty rich place for a pretty good reason. And I mean, at some point you may just have to say, well, we can educate people to a certain extent, and we can make it so that you have to kind of go to one of the dodgy exchanges in order to do the stuff that's going to get you hurt. But, you know, one way or another, I mean, people are going to make decentralized card games and rip people off with decentralized 3-card Monte instead of you know, getting liquidated on that. So,
yeah, well, I'll say two things about it. Number one, you know, the biggest problem is that U.S. already regulates the futures markets and doing leverage trading. So you already can't just go onto exchanges if you're in the U.S. And the problem that we experience is that the U.S. is just regulating U.S. people in a global market. And so now you're just limiting U.S. people from doing what the rest of the world is doing. And so I do agree that this isn't just a U.S. thing. This is a global thing that needs to be solved as a global regulatory body if you're ever even able to do any of that stuff. Second thing I'll say is crypto has been pumping during this entire call, and probably a good time to put some shorts in and ride that thing on the back down over the weekend. So
yeah, no, these it has been pumping, but it's everyone's gonna sell that off for sure. So whenever you see green candles, turn it around, sell and buy it on the dip. So all right, well, without further ado, good chatting with you all. Happy Wednesday.
Always a pleasure here every Wednesday, and we'll catch you guys on the next one.
Have a good one. See you later.
All right. Bye, guys.